welcome back to the channel. So I just want to make this video to talk about the state of Edison and where it is right now. It is currently the beginning of September 2024, and I think that we've had a good amount of developments throughout 2024. It's been a really good year for the format. So there's a couple things I want to go over. Hopefully this video is not going to be too long, but yeah, let's just get right into it. So I saw an interesting video on TCG Rewind's channel discussing the fact that when they first announced Ultimate Time Wizard and just Time Wizard formats in general, it was supposed to be several retro formats. It could be Goats, Edison, Tengu, Hat, Dragon Rulers, Firewater, whatever, right? Like any format that people deemed popular and that they wanted to play, they would do tournaments and stuff like that for them, including at the local level. Ultimate Time Wizard came a little later, and obviously the first one was Edison format. But then we ended up having a 3v3 in Vegas this year that was 3 different formats. It was Goats, Edison, and Tengu, which are, I think, at that time at least, the 3 most popular retro formats. But since then, Konami has not dabbled in anything outside of Edison. And I'm starting to wonder if we're kind of missing the plot here when we talk about retro formats. Like, yes, I love Edison, right? Like most of my channel is Edison. I have done some Tengu content as well, but most of it is Edison, and it's the format that I do prefer playing. But I almost feel bad for people who like other formats like Goats and Tengu format and Hat format and stuff like that, because it doesn't seem like they're going to get their own Ultimate Time Wizard tournament. Like I kind of thought that it would be something where it would rotate at some point, right? Like you'd have Goat format has an Ultimate Time Wizard tournament, which I'm sure a lot of people would love because that community is also pretty big, I would say, and those people are devoted to that format. So they definitely show up in high numbers, I think, for the first one if they got the opportunity. Edison, we've had every single one so far, and the only one that wasn't just Edison was shared with 2 other formats, but like even then Edison was included, and then Tengu format I think would be, you know, another format that people would show up for. So yeah, as much as I love Edison format, I do think that at some point there should be Ultimate Time Wizard tournaments for other formats, and if they're worried about attendance and things like that, I promise you will get the same number of people, if not more, to show up. Like at Sacramento YCS there was 166 players for Edison. I think you get around the same amount for Goats or Tengu if you announce it in enough time for people to get the cards and stuff that they need. But yeah, I have faith in other Ultimate Time Wizard tournaments being a good thing for all of Yu-Gi-Oh communities. Next though is the pricing. So this has been a big topic of discussion this year because a lot of people have been really displeased with Konami's pricing. It's especially for the advanced format, for modern format. It's not very good. If you top, you basically just get a mat, and if you get far, like 3rd place or whatnot, you get, I think, a prize card that's super rare and a Switch. So there's been like a meme that basically Konami just gives you a Nintendo Switch, which is a 7-year-old console at this point. And even if they give you a PS5, I still think that that's like, you know, the pricing could just be better overall. Like winning a YCS main event right now is less than winning the Ultimate Time Wizard tournament, and that sucks. But even within the Ultimate Time Wizard tournament, if we're being honest, the pricing is still a little too top heavy. For example, my friend Luke Feeney, so he just topped YCS Sacramento. He got top 8 at the Ultimate Time Wizard Edison tournament, and he got a hamster mat, the same exact thing that you could get for playing in an 8-man pod. On the contrary, the winner of that tournament got a giant Black Rose Dragon, the same one you see right here in this picture, and that card is going to go for anywhere from like $4,000 to $6,000. They range in that amount. None of them have sold below that. So it's kind of crazy that somebody could get a $40 mat and then somebody else could get a $5,000 card on average. I think that's just insane. I'm all for top heavy tournaments as well. Like when I host tournaments, I like them to be top heavy with the pricing, but not that top heavy, right? Like, and also the mat should change by now. You know, the mat should be different. Like we're still doing the hamster mat. And on top of that, I think the mat for top 8ing and Ultimate Time Wizard should just be completely different than the one that you get for winning an 8-man pod. Like I think that we could get an Absolute Zero mat or a Christia mat or a 5-headed dragon mat that is just for the top 8 of Ultimate Time Wizard. That would actually give it some monetary value so that even though you didn't win the giant card or whatnot, you still walk away with something, whether you wanted to keep it or sell it for like $500 or something for people who wanted to collect those types of things. That'd just be awesome to have something that's exclusive to the top 8, even if that's as far as you go. Because I think that top 8 in these tournaments is an accomplishment, but like, yeah, getting just a hamster mat is a little wild. And then the other person gets, again, a $5,000 card. So, and then always top 8. So I'm hoping that this changes soon, but Ultimate Time Wizard tournaments being just top 8, no matter how many people enter, is a meme. Nationals was a bit ridiculous because they played 9 rounds and it was still top 8. So a lot of people did not make it, which sucked. The good thing is that everyone who was X and 1 made it, but like, I don't think that you should have to go X and 1 to top every time, because the way I look at Yu-Gi-Oh is that you're always allowed 2 losses. One, because your opponent may have gotten very lucky and there's not much you could have done, and then one when your deck doesn't cooperate with you and you brick. Those are like the 2 losses that you're allowed that are out of your control. Sometimes you go through an entire tournament and you go X1 because you play it really well and none of your opponents got it lucky in any crazy spots, or your deck just didn't brick that day, and so you end up going X and 1. Obviously, going undefeated requires a lot of luck and skill, but yeah, making it where you cannot lose twice in Ultimate Time Wizard is insane, because it's harder to top those than it is to top like any modern event where you can go X2, X2-1, stuff like that. Like if they're top 64, pretty much everyone gets in. So yeah, just the whole top 8 thing I think needs to be changed and adjusted. It should just go scaled by the number of people, like every other tournament. It shouldn't just be locked in the top 8 just because. Okay, so the big 3, yeah, they're still winning almost everything. So Vayu, Blackwing, and Frogs are the big 3 decks. And we have Dream Frogs now, so it's not just Hero Frogs carrying the Frog deck into the top 3. It's also Dream Frogs is up there. I don't want to have them separated into like 2 different decks, although they are technically 2 different decks, but like at the end of the day, when people think about Frogs, they're all dupe blocking you, they're all summoning Caiuses and trying to summon Caiuses over and over again and stuff like that. So the big 3 is still very prevalent. I can't think of the last time a non-big 3 deck won a tournament. Now, I'm sure that somebody in the comments will let me know, but as far as I've seen, there's been a lot of wins for the big 3, and that's why I say like winning almost everything. I'm sure that there are some tournaments that, you know, haven't been won, but all the majors lately, I know at least all the Ultimate Time Wizard tournaments have been won by these 3, and I know RBET Maryland was won by Vayu. The online tournaments have been won by Vayu and Frogs. You'll get a Blackwing here and there, but yeah, the big 3 still going very strong, still winning almost everything. The thing that I have noticed though is that there's an anti-frog meta developing, and I'm playing in Peak of the Beak 6 right now as I'm recording this video. It's a 48-hour round tournament, so that means that every 2 days you get a new opponent and you have to schedule with them within those 2 days and play your match, and then, you know, obviously whoever wins, they'll move on, and then the person who loses drops into the losers bracket or whatnot. It is Swiss, but yeah, that tournament is happening, and I have been watching the replays from it because it's in Format Library, where their tournaments you have to post replays after it's over. And I noticed that there's a lot of people main decking viruses, not just Deck Devi, but also Eradicator. Like there's just a whole lot of viruses now. There's a lot of weird stuff like main deck Kaiku. I'm seeing more main deck DD Crows, Fossil Dynas, all types of stuff. People are siding Massacre Strix again. And it's specifically like anti-frog. I don't know if the whole community at once kind of sees frog as the biggest threat, but Crow's Nest, aka Snack, did post a video talking about Deck Devastator 7 and how the best players play frogs. It's just a thing that people who have topped tournaments are more likely to play the frog deck and have success with it, and then people who haven't done well typically flock to Blackwings. And so me and my friends kind of have a little meme going right now. We're saying that Blackwings is the hero beat deck of the big 3, so it is still one of the best decks in the format. I don't want to ever get that misconstrued, but of the big 3, it's definitely like the more helmet deck of them, right? Like it's not a hard deck to play, but a lot of people do still botch it somehow, as overpowered as it is. But I think of the 3, like frogs would be the most difficult to play, and then Vayu, and then Blackwing. And yeah, so there's been an anti-frog meta developing. I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but it has made other decks viable, like GBs and Dragon Turbo are way more viable now. In theory, Christia Sworn should be too, although I haven't seen that deck popping off as much, but there's been a lot more GBs and Dragon Turbo in recent tournaments because of how popular and how good frogs are in the meta. And frogs have won the last 3 Ultimate Time Wizard tournaments in the United States, so there's that. And then I kind of posed this question: is this narrative bad for Edison format? So the idea of a big 3, right? Because people talk about Edison format as being so diverse, and that's one of the sell points that a lot of people use to get other people to join the format. It's like, oh, if you're tired of just playing, you know, Fiendsmith mirrors or Snake Eye mirrors or whatever the hell the modern people are struggling with right now, if you're tired of that, you can come over to Edison and you could choose one of these like 10 different decks. But in reality, if you want to win a tournament, the highest chance you have of winning a tournament is choosing one of these 3 decks. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's not a full-on triangle format because there's a lot of other decks that are somewhat viable still, but these are like the three. And I think that Blackwings has a more favorable matchup against Frogs. I think Frogs has a more favorable matchup against Value, and I think Value has a more favorable matchup against Blackwing. So it's like a little triangle. I think that at best, at absolute best, they all beat each other like 55-45 in that triangle, right? So like they're not stomping each other. Like Blackwings doesn't stomp Frogs, Frogs doesn't stomp Value, Value doesn't stomp Blackwings. It's all like 55-45, like best conditions, right? But I'm wondering if you guys think that it's a bad thing to kind of push the narrative that there is a big three in this format. Because for me, I'm just a realist. I like to call things the way I see it. And when I see a trend and I see a deck or decks doing better than everything else, and it's been well over a year now, right? Like we've been playing this format for a while, and it's just really been these three mostly winning everything. If you see something that is not one of these three win a tournament, you're more surprised, and it's way bigger news than like, oh, Blackwings won again, oh, Value won again, oh, Frogs won again. It's kind of just like, all right, you're just used to it. So okay, for opportunities and rumors, so first up, tons of tournaments. I actually love where Edison is right now because we have more tournaments than we can handle. I feel like almost every single weekend there's a tournament happening online or in person between RBETs, Peak of the Beak, Deck Devastators, the ones that I throw for IMNerd, like special tournaments and stuff like that, Ultimate Time Wizards by Konami. There's just so many this year, and I think that that's going to continue to be like that, and I'm not mad at it at all. I think that it's a great thing that you can kind of pick and choose, like, oh, I'll play in this one but not in this one. You know, you can still do your own personal life things, but then if you do want to play Edison format, there's not a short list of tournaments for you to play in. There's just always stuff. If you're in Format Library, if you're in EdisonFormat.com, if you're in those two Discord servers, there will be tournaments for you to play in every single month without fail. So definitely check out all of those servers. And if you want access to my server, the IMNerdpodcast server, check out our Patreon. That gets you access into the server. And then we host online locals. We host special tournaments. We just had a celebration tournament that was free for everyone to play in. It had a cash prize. There's pot bonuses. There's all types of stuff. So yeah, if you want to win some money, I do tournaments myself, me and Kenny. And then if you want to play in tournaments with a lot of good people and get practice and try to get better at the format Library and EdisonFormat.com have great tournaments for you to try. So lots of opportunities there. There's been a ton of YouTube channels that have come up this year, and I'm happy about that. Like, I'm not a gatekeeping kind of person. I think that there's room for everybody. Everyone has their own perspective, and as long as you're being yourself, putting out the type of content that you want to put out, I think that you can be successful and also just be consistent in what you do. But yeah, there's a lot of YouTube channels, so check out all of those. There's a lot of them. Retro Yugioh Formats, which is Oscar's Elias channel. There's Sack Phase, which is Eric Shen, aka Sizzle's channel. There's the Edison Club. There's Crow's Nest if you like stat work and things like that. So yeah, there's just a bunch, and there's a lot of new ones that have come up. So support them, look out for them. I'm sure that your YouTube recommended will give some of those channels to you. That's what happens to me. Like, I'll just see them pop up and I'll click on the video and see if I like the way this person is presenting themselves or what they're saying. If it makes sense, then I subscribe after watching a couple videos. But yeah, lots of YouTube stuff. And then in terms of rumors, so the part that's not a rumor is that we are getting a Bonanza reprint set. That is happening, right? Like, Konami announced that that's happening. I think it says something like 200 cards for retro formats. I don't know, and so does no one else really, but we don't really know what will be in those sets, or in that set rather, but we're all hopeful. People are hoping for things like Amaryllis, which is a very expensive card, currently in Edison format. There's Magical Android, which is randomly expensive. I think Armor Master's up there, Iron Chain Dragon, and then reprints of things that just need to be hollow, like Cold Wave and Spine Gilman and Unifrog and Flip Flop Frog. Death Frog I don't think comes hollow yet either. There's a bunch of cards that could be foiled out in Edison format and just make them prettier, like how we just got Substitute. I'm very thankful for that, but I'm hoping that this set does reprint a lot of things. It won't really affect the market in terms of the max rarity of cards. I noticed that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh is at this point. If you have the max rarity of something, you don't really have to worry about the price tanking on it. Like, for example, super rare Dust Shoot, no matter what they do, no matter what Konami does to Dust Shoot, super rare Dust Shoot will still be a lot of money because of how old it is and because of how rare it is and how hard it is to find cards like that in good conditions. But it would be cool as hell if they did reprint it in a rarity that we haven't seen before. Like, I would love an ulti Dust Shoot, even though the card is toxic as hell, but that would still be awesome. So yeah, that's rumors, stuff, people just speculating like, oh, they're definitely going to reprint Amaryllis, you should get rid of them now while they're at an all-time high. I'm not telling you to do that, but yeah, you know how Yu-Gi-Oh gets with reprints, so just wait and see, I guess. And lastly, there's the advanced Edison format stuff. So if you listen to the podcast that I recently did with Joe Orlando, he brought up the idea of having Edison format where all of the rules and all of the cards are eroded and modernized, meaning you don't have priority with ignition effects like Substitute, Rescue Cat, Lone Fire Blossom, things like that. Like they don't have priority anymore. Dark Armed, Judgment Dragon, Greffer, all of those cards lose priority because they're ignition effects. So cards like Bottomless Trap Hole, Book of Moon, Gemini Spark, Hero Blast, all those cards become amazing because you can use them on a monster summon. Like imagine your opponent summons JD, and before they can use priority, because it doesn't exist, you can go Raigeki Break and just kill the Judgment Dragon, and now your whole field stays. So that would be a very big change. Also, if you go first, if you win the die roll and you go first, you don't draw for going first, because that's how it works in Modern. And the other thing is the problem solving card text, which actually changes a lot of the cards as well. Like Raikou, I know now in Modern, Raikou doesn't make things miss timing. It happens simultaneously, so destroying and milling is simultaneous, so things don't miss timing. So Dupe Frog and Dimensional Alchemist won't miss timing, but Raikou doesn't target in Modern either, which is insane because that means that Titanial can't negate it. So Raikou gets a huge buff, even though it gets a small like nerf, it gets a huge buff in my opinion by not targeting, because that means that like if you flip a Raikou and your opponent has two back rows and one of them is a draw trap and one of them is a real trap, they would have to chain the draw trap in order to not lose it to Raikou's effect, because Raikou on resolution will pop one of them and you can't chain it at that point. It's kind of like Trishula resolving, if you remember that. It's like we have two cards in the back row and I go summon Trishula. If you want a torrential, you have to torrential when I summon the Trishula and activate the effect. You can't wait until I pick a card on your field to banish to use torrential. It's too late at that point. So Raikou would be like that, and that's pretty broken. And then also Stardust can't negate Raikou because Yugioh. I really don't even understand that one, but for whatever reason, because it's I guess they try to explain it like Snipe Hunter, it's not guaranteed that it's going to destroy something, and because it doesn't destroy until resolution, Stardust can't negate it. So I think that's the explanation I was told, something along those lines. But there's a lot of other things. For example, Goyo Guardian needs an Earth tuner to make it, which means that Black Wings will get a huge nerf because Blizzard doesn't just turn into Goyo Guardian every time. There's also Brionic is once per turn, and it can only be used on your opponent's cards. Future Fusion doesn't send on activation, which is huge. That really nerfs Dragon Turbo and really any deck playing Future Fusion. Like it doesn't send when you activate it. Rescue Cat, the monsters, I think their effects are negated, so you can't get two Aerebellums and just take your opponent's hand. And there's a bunch. There's just a ton. Brain Control's nerfed. Like it doesn't work on special summon monsters unless they can be normal summon. So basically nothing from the extra deck could ever be brain controlled, which is huge. But yeah, there's a lot of rumors and stuff. People are thinking that Konami's going to do this because it'll be easier for them to implement, and maybe it'll help them to bring Edison format into Master Duel, which I would be here for. I would love if Master Duel had Edison format, but the only way they'd be able to do that is if they applied all the same rulings that are consistent across Yu-Gi-Oh! Now. They're not going to code in old 2010 rulings that don't make sense for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Into that game. That's just not going to happen. So we'll see what happens. I think at best, if they do force us to play advanced Edison format, there will still be purists who play the original Edison format, and there will be a ton of online tournaments and even in-person tournaments, I think, that will play the 2010 version of it. And then there will be a community of people who like playing the advanced version of it, and you'll have Format Library that'll do tournaments for both of them. I think that that's just what would happen, since Format Library does tournaments for every single minor micro format there is. So if they, separated Edison into like two factions, an advanced version and an original version, I think that people would just play both depending on how they're feeling, because that's just what people do. And you'd have tournaments for both. But then like Ultimate Time Wizards would be advanced Edison format only, I imagine. And this would make it easier on judges too, because they won't have to refer to websites that Konami forbids in order to find out how things work. They won't have to have this special knowledge of the format anymore. It'll just be like, well, this is how the card works currently, so this is how the card is going to work in Edison format. Some people are obviously very opposed to this. Some people are for this. I see it as a good and bad thing. Like there are pros and cons to it, no matter how you look at it. And I'll have that discussion again at a later time. But I do like the idea of change, because right now Edison format does have a lot of the same thing happening pretty much every tournament, which again is the big three decks just taking most of the top spots and usually winning every tournament. So the advanced thing would hopefully shake up the decks that are the best. And yeah, you might see some crazy stuff performing well. Decks might be built to go second as opposed to every deck just wanting to go first. And the die roll being a brain dead part of the game, where every single time the die roll is won, that person's going first. You don't even have to ask them. It's just assumed. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in terms of the state of Edison. So what do you guys think about all of that? Let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.